I read A Game of Thrones. That was terrible. I read A Game of Thrones. Um, Honestly, I really enjoyed it. It was a really good book. I have seen the series, so like I knew spoilers, I knew what was going to happen and all that. But I still found myself like thoroughly enjoying the book. My first impression, because I mean, it's a big book, you know. It is the biggest book I've read, word count wise. And so I was, because I've read other long books before. I've read the Harry Potter series. I've read Lord of the Rings. I've read some of the Odyssey. No, not the Odyssey. The Iliad. I've read some of the Iliad, and like I've read other long books, and most of them are older, and so they're kind of like they're older language, so they're kind of harder to get through. Those books are still good, but because this book was so good, I thought that this would also kind of be a struggle to get through, and I thought it'd be older language and it'd just be a harder read. I thought it would be a harder read than it was. It Yeah, it wasn't as hard of a read as I thought it was. It was going to be. Um, the books are segmented into chapters. Each chapter is like a different POV. There's a handful of POVs in it, and it was really engaging. Even though I like knew it was going to happen, for the most part, this book was pretty closely followed by the TV show. But there were a few chapters, a few scenes that weren't in the TV show, and those were nice. Yeah, those were nice. Another pro is just the amount of depth that this book goes into. Like, even though I'd seen the show, there are a lot of things I didn't understand just because it's in like a TV format, but in a book format, they're able to explain some of those things a lot more, and um, they don't really go into depth, but they're just able to explain things more. And so I learned a lot more about the world of Westeros and that world by reading the book. Things I just hadn't caught when I watched the show. Um, so that was nice, and just like a lot of the backstory and stuff. Um, uh, and I also found like, because the show super good, but it's a slow burn. It's slow, and while watching this show, there are some parts that I feel like, okay, this is going really slow, and some parts in the show feel like they just kind of drag on. I didn't have that problem with the book. The book really felt like every chapter and every scene was like important, like every sentence even. Um, and like it really feels like George R. R. Martin wrote the story and cut out as much as he physically could and only kept what was important. And it's still a big book, but it just feels like everything in it is important. Like after every chapter, I was like, that feels like it was an important scene, and it just was quicker pacing. It didn't seem like it went as slow. It seemed like it went pretty fast. It is a long book for sure. It's almost 900 pages. It's a big book. Like I said, it's the longest book I've read. But still, I got through it relatively quickly. It's definitely not for a beginner at all. If you're new to reading, I wouldn't start with this, because it took me a good month to read it, and that's like, I would consider that's like fast. That'd be like on average, I would consider that it would take longer to read this, but I read it in about a month. I think that was probably averaging about 50 pages a day, or just under that or something. Probably just under that. But it's a good read. I guess getting into the actual contents of the book, like characters and stuff. George R. R. Martin is a master in his craft. There's a reason the TV show is so popular. The characters are they're all different, they're all fleshed out, they're all really good characters that are easy to get invested in. Of course, again, I already knew the characters, but it's interesting to see like how they're different in the book, because some characters, most characters are at least slightly different in the book. Some characters are even more different. I'm, currently reading the next book in the series, and Theon has some POVs in that, and he's quite a different character in the book. He's still like the same character, but he's quite different. And just the story in general, it's so engaging and like real. It, I mean, it is an adult series, I'm sure most of you know, and because of which they can get away with a lot of violence and sex and adult content. However, I didn't find the book as adult as a TV show. It's still adult for sure, but I'm just because the different mediums, the TV show is like more visual, so it's more adult. The book is adult too, but it doesn't, when it describes those scenes like the violence and sex, it's not as detailed and descriptive as one might think. It really just described what was important and just kind of got on with it. Like, no sex scene really lasted longer than a page, and that was just one thing that was interesting, I think. But yeah, it is a good book. I definitely recommend to anyone that wants to read it. But like, it is a long book, just beware of that. But it's really good, and I very much enjoyed it, and I definitely recommend it.